Alrighty, welcome to zZounds Live. I'm John, and we are joined here by Gail Ann Dorsey. Gail, thank you so much for joining us and
My
hopping on this
pleasure.
call here. So,
Oh,
um, so you're out in Paris, in the
yeah,
studio, getting to
yeah,
work.
yeah. Getting a little bit of work here. Busy. I actually had a really fun opportunity to do a little TV show. I guess it was last week already with John Baptiste, the piano player
Hmm.
on the Stephen Colbert show, and of course I think he has like a #1 record in the States at the moment.
Awesome.
He's won the Oscar and everything, but he
Yeah,
was doing some press for his album, and I got to play some bass for him on the TV here in Paris last week, which was a lot of fun.
that's awesome.
He's an amazing.
So for anyone that maybe is not familiar, do you want to kind of let us know who you've worked with, who you're currently working with, kind of just like a brief overview of your career a little bit?
Oh boy.
We could hear for a while.
where, where do I start? Well, I'll start with probably the person I'm most known for playing bass for, which is David Bowie. I worked with him from 1995 until next to the last album that he did, so till 2013. And I toured with him and played on his albums and did videos and various things with Bowie, which is probably what I'm most known for.
Hmm.
I've worked with Tears for Fears, Olivia Newton-John. Gosh, it's so funny. I start to blank. Gang of Four,
Yeah,
which
yeah.
there's a new tribute album of Gang of Four that's just been released recently that I've contributed a track to.
Hmm.
Because we lost Andy Gill, who was the lead guitarist the guitarist of Gang of Four, passed away last year, sadly.
Yeah.
And so I played bass with them for a while. I played with Sophie B. Hawkins. I've played with Indigo Girls and oh my goodness, I
Yeah.
can't even remember who else. But also, and most recently, I've been working the last 9 years or so with Lenny Kravitz. I've been touring with
Awesome.
Lenny Kravitz.
Yeah. So
So
you've
it's
had quite the
quite a
busy career so far.
yeah. Well, Gwen Stefani. How can I forget Gwen? I did her solo tours when she did her 2 big solo albums a few years back.
Oh, awesome.
So, yeah.
Were you in Chicago when she played Riot Fest, I think in like 2015?
No, I'm talking like Hollaback Girl days back.
Oh, okay.
The very first that and Sweet Escape. I did those 2 tours,
Okay.
which was 2005 and 2007. I think, that believe it or not, that long ago.
Also, I
Uh,
know it's crazy to think
Ooh,
like I was just talking to my coworker and we were like talking about 20 years ago and he's like, oh, the 80s. So we're like, wait, no, 20
yeah,
years ago was 2001. So
yeah, exactly. Isn't that something? I know,
it's
right?
nuts. It's nuts.
It is really nuts.
But
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 I've played bass with a lot of people, and then I've done some solo projects and released some solo albums as well. So I've been doing a lot of different things, which I
that's
liked.
awesome. Yeah, yeah, we love it. So how did you kind of stumble upon bass? Like how did that become your go-to instrument?
Well, I started as a guitar player. Guitar is my favorite instrument. I love the guitar,
Uh-huh.
and I just never could get as good on the guitar as I did on the bass, which is kind of, I don't know. Maybe
Yeah.
it was just meant to be that I was to discover the bass, which I really love now. I mean, I
Yeah.
understand. I'm still learning the instrument. Really, I still feel that, but I also learned that how much I really love it and how important it is. Um, in music, what the
Mhm.
bass does and the what the position it takes. But I started because I, like a lot of guitar players. I was, as a teenager, now we're going way back in the mid '70s.
Mhm.
I was looking for. I wanted to get work as a guitar player, like so in like a top 40 band in the summer in between school
Mhm.
summer break, and I went looking at the bulletin boards and then the one ads for musicians that they used to have in the music stores back in the day.
Mhm.
And all of the cards on the music board said, guitarist seeks bass player, guitarist seeks drummer, guitarist seeks keyboard player. Everybody played the freaking guitar. So I was
Yep.
like, I'm never going to get, and I wasn't even that good. So I thought I'm definitely not going to be able to get a gig for that. So I thought, well, I'm going to go for bass because it can't be that difficult because it's less strings and it's one note at a time. And like, I didn't really think about it that much.
Yeah, totally.
I borrowed a bass from my older sister's best friend's boyfriend had a bass. He had a Rickenbacker. I remember.
Yeah.
I went to an audition and I got the job. And I said to my mom, if I get the job, will you get me a bass? And she was like, yeah, because she probably thought I wasn't going to get the job. I didn't think I was going to get the job. So that's how it started. I got an Epiphone bass, which I gave away, God knows where, when I went away to college. I don't even know what I did with it. I wish I kept it now. Really cool old Epiphone. I have photos of it.
Huh.
And then I kind of went back to guitar actually, really, and slowly kind of started using the bass more to make demos when I was writing songs to do my first solo album and trying, get my solo career started. So the bass was just kind of a thing, like a utility thing, because I got that gig, so I started to get better on the bass. I started to learn it, and then but I still considered myself a guitar player. But eventually, the bass just kept calling. I kept getting more work. People needed a bass player, and I was really enjoying learning the instrument and playing different kinds of music and thinking, hey, this is actually kind of better than the guitar in a way. It's like it's very, very, very cool instrument. I never really gave it much thought.
Yeah, I think people underestimate sometimes the power that bass plays in a song or in a composition.
Totally.
It really kind of fills it out and adds that. Like if you listen to a song without bass, right?
Yeah.
Like what is going on? Like what's happening? And then you cue the bass in, and you're like, oh, okay.
Now so you know where you are. It's like you suddenly, there's somebody behind the wheel. I always compare it to when I speak to bass players, or I'm giving, like, not that I'm a teacher. I'm not a very good bass teacher or anything like that. But when I speak to aspiring bass players, or I explain that it's like the bass is like so important. It's like the driver of the car. It can steer the music in any direction, and it's like you have this responsibility of not like making everybody crash. You got to keep the car on the road.
Yep.
And bass is really has this huge responsibility. And the way I learned that, I guess the hard way, I guess most people learn it, is starting to play music with people, doing a live show, and making mistakes.
Yeah.
And when the bass makes a mistake or drops out or plays the wrong note or it sort of doesn't go the right way, it's like the whole thing falls apart, no matter what everybody else is doing. Yep. So I suddenly thought, wow, you really need to pay attention.
Yeah,
so it's
definitely
kind of cool.
Cool. I think when I was kind of recording music and playing in some bands, it was our producer always said, your bass player needs to be best friends with the drummer. Do you work really closely with drummers and just making sure like you guys are really tight, or is it kind of you look at more of the whole picture?
Well, I definitely, the best drummers to me are the ones that I don't even think about in a way. If I have to concentrate on what the drummer is doing, then I'm concerned.
Yeah.
Seriously, like I feel like I've been very lucky. I've played with some incredible drummers, so it's like it's almost like they've just pulled out the chair for me to sit at the table, and like a good drummer, like I sit down and I'm comfortable, and then I can do what I need to do, and I'm not worried about whether the drummer is with me or not with me. Yeah. They're almost like we're just one, and so. But it is true that it has to be that kind of a relationship in a sense. But I do think that the best drummers are the ones that I don't have to wonder if I'm with them.
Yeah, there you go. So cool. So let's talk about Ernie Ball a little bit. I see behind you, you have your Stingray there. You said it was the first one.
Yeah, it's 1985, I believe, Stingray. it was a gift from a band called the Thrashing Doves, which was a British band that I worked with. One of the early like professional jobs I had. In fact, the first tour I ever did in my whole career was with this band. It were two brothers and two other friends of theirs that made up the band, and they had a big record deal at the time. Great songwriters and really good singers, but they never kind of took off. But they had a deal, and they had money behind them, and I played bass for them. And when I got the job, I had an old Kramer. I still have this bass. It's in New York now, but a Kramer. It's called the Duke by Kramer, and it was like a Steinberger with the headless, with
Yeah.
had an aluminum neck.
Yep.
So it was like a weird bass. It's still cool, but it wasn't good enough to kind of go out and do a tour with it, and now I was stepping up to do my first tour, so I needed a good bass. And I always loved, I loved watching the live bands in the 70s on TV, on like the Midnight Special and stuff. There were all these TV shows that used to have all the bands, and I always saw the bass players with a P bass, precision or jazz bass. It's it still is the most popular bass really in the world, those basses, Fender basses. But I remember seeing the brothers Johnson, Louis Johnson with a Stingray. And I think even at some point, my favorite band of all time was Queen. I even saw John Deacon with the Stingray once. And I was like, that bass looks really cool. So my first thing with Ernie Ball was just that it was a different bass that looked different, and to me looked kind of cooler than a Fender bass. Like, it was like, wow, what's that one that there were a lot of people playing Stingrays in the 70s.
Yeah.
And so that was kind of, I wanted to have one of those basses. I always wanted to have a Stingray. First, because it just looked cool, which is a lot of a lot of people want a car. When you're a kid, you're like, I want a Trans Am because it looks cool. It's like you don't really talk about cars. So you go by aesthetic of like how cool it looks, or how cool you think it looks.
Definitely, yeah. I think design.
Yeah, so that bass, I said, I need to get a Stingray for this tour, and it was something that they bought for the tour, and then it was my gift. It was a gift to me. So this bass has been on my very first tour, and it's also been the bass that I have played on pretty much every job I've ever had, and almost every record I've ever worked on, if I have the opportunity. What I learned about Ernie Ball and Stingray once I actually had one and played it and got the feel of it, is that to me, and I have other basses now too. There's an MTD back there, Michael Tobias. I play his basses sometimes, and I have a P bass. I have that collection of basses, mainly because they do have a very specific character. But the Stingray of all the basses to me is, if I had to have one bass and get rid of every other bass I've ever owned or played or whatever, it would be that one, because it's the most versatile. Yeah. Even though I feel like it can cover so many different styles of music. And the other basses are very particular. I think a P bass is very particular, or a lot of it has to do with your touch and your hands and your fingers and the approach. But a well-made bass has a personality. Any instrument, guitar is the same. Yeah. So I feel like I've played Stingrays forever, and the reason why is because it can cover so much ground for me. I can get a lot of different styles out of it. It can do a lot. And I always advise young players who are looking, what bass should I get? If you're not sure what style of music you want to play, I always recommend a Stingray, because it's something that you can use it to discover all different styles of music.
Totally. I think that's super important.
Yeah.
Because when you're starting out, I mean, I know, at least for me, when I was starting out as a musician, it was, I went through my phases. It was punk rock, and then, some jam band stuff. And then, and those styles are different. I mean, for a guitar player, it's like the amp you use, the guitar you use, the pedals you use are all going to be different.
Exactly.
but with if having something that's versatile, you know, that you can kind of hold on to and kind of move in and out of those different genres
Yeah.
and and styles, you know, that's definitely something that I think is extremely valuable.
And they're well made basses. I mean, they're
Hmm.
very, very well made. So if you start going on sessions and things, you want to turn up to a recording session, you want your bass to be in good shape, and you don't want
Yeah.
it to be buzzing and having weird like overtones and things. And so, it's a reliable bass in that sense. Certainly, this bass has been mirrored. I'm sorry, I'm mirrored on the screen,
Yeah,
so
no,
it's
right.
been. And also, most I mean, I have the luxury of having a collection of bases, but most people will not have that opportunity. So I do always recommend, if anyone cares to know, I would highly recommend a Stingray if you have not so many resources to have a bunch of different bases in your collection.
Yeah. So that's the original one, which you say you
Hmm.
continue you play it, you know, even now and in
Yeah,
the
I played it
studio.
with John Baptiste the other day. It was on. I played it.
That's so awesome.
Yeah.
Have you worked with Ernie Ball Music Man to create like a replica of that and like try and get so you have like a backup or have
Uh,
you
no, I have different ones. I have a couple of 5 strings that I played a lot with David Bowie. Most of those, a lot of the stuff that I did with him was 5 string, especially, and in the '90s, even some of the other sessions, Gwen Stefani as well.
Mhm.
The 5 string was kind of the thing. You needed it because I
Yeah.
was either covering synth parts or there was just really low bass parts.
Hmm.
I don't play the 5 strings that much anymore. It's interesting. I'm finding that most things, it seems like stuff is going back to like traditional kind of bass, just 4 string bass.
Yeah.
But I have a few Stingrays, so and they're different years. One I have another like a 5 string from the '80s. I have one from the '90s, and the last one I got, which is really really great, was the classic. I got it in 2011 when I started with Lenny Kravitz.
Mhm.
Um, is the reissue of the classic Stingray, which is really gorgeous. I put flat rounds on that,
Yeah.
and it's just sort of basic. But yeah, this '80s one is not. It's not exactly like the classic. It's a
Hmm.
little more brighter and kind of like hyped up a little bit because '80s was more like that. I think
Yeah.
when making guitars a little brighter,
Huh.
but it's a great bass.
That's awesome. So you mentioned before we went live here that you have like a Patreon and you've been kind of working on some stuff
Yeah,
with some fans. Do you want to kind of tell us about that and what you've kind of been up
yeah,
to like recently during, you know, COVID
yeah.
quarantine?
Yeah, well, I had to sort of discover what to do. It was kind of
Yeah.
crazy. Obviously, a lot of tours were canceled. I had a big tour that was planned. Um, well, the first thing I did was take the time to start learning something I've wanted to do, like to how to get my recording skills a bit better.
Yeah.
Because I like to, I've always been good at making demos, but it's like now you can make a record at home. You can,
Yeah.
it's possible.
Yeah. Definitely.
So I have Logic. I've never used Pro Tools, but
Hmm.
I've worked in Logic for a long time, but I've usually just been using it to do bass tracks for people when I do like a E session, or people want a bass track or they want a vocal track or something. I can, I have a nice preamp and things, and I can record that and send it off. But
Hmm.
I wanted to be able to, like, I've never learned how to mix on Logic or anything. So I took a 12-week online course in Logic. It was the
There
first
you
thing
go.
I did on the lockdown. So
Yeah.
now I've kind of got my skills ramped up a little bit. And once I got that together, I started working on a Patreon page so that I could kind of still connect with fans and just give myself some kind of creative challenges to do, which is something I've wanted to do with recording. So I've
Hmm.
been working a lot on, like, one of the things I offer on my Patreon page to the subscribers is that I do I name an artist at the beginning of the month, and the subscribers can vote on a song that they'd like to hear me cover by that artist.
That's awesome.
So, yeah, the first month was like Paul Williams, which was
Hmm.
like really, weird. And then we did a Sarah McLachlan song and a Neil Young song, and now I'm finishing up a Bee Gees song, which I'm mixing today.
Oh, awesome!
I call out these really different genres, and I do my version of the song, so it's not always exactly the same. So it just makes me think, and also keeps my recording skills going. So that's a lot of what I've been doing there on Patreon, as well as I do a live stream. I do a bass hangout once a month, and I do some exclusives. I share some videos and photos and things that from different tours and stuff that I've been I had time to kind of go through my archives and find all these videos and stuff that I had from Bowie and Tears for Fears and different things. So I've been sharing a few little special personal things from my collection on Patreon as well.
Nice.
So that's what I've been doing.
Yeah, I can imagine, once kind of the live shows stopped and, tours are canceled, you're kind of left with like, all right, what do I do? And I feel like a lot of people have kind of looked into, home recording or learning DAWs and things like that. So it's super cool to see how that movement is kind of shifting in that direction of like being able to record a professional album at home. I mean, you can get like a small interface, a nice preamp, a good mic, and you're almost good to go.
It's incredible. And speaking of zZounds, I was saying to you guys earlier that I get a lot of my gear has come from you guys. I have in my little home studio setup. So
we love that. It's so funny because you're Gail Ann Dorsey. You've played with Lenny and David Bowie, and it's like when you're like, oh, I love zZounds. It's like, oh, no way.
I do. So cool. I still have to. I don't get everything for free. Sometimes I get things, which is nice, and I don't expect things for free too. I'm not one of those people who's like, oh, I deserve to have this, that, or the other thing. I kind of want what I need. Sometimes people offer me guitars, and I don't want to take them because I don't need it, and I'm not really going to use it. So it's just another thing to store.
Yeah.
But I do like gear. I've always liked gear. I'm always poking around on zZounds and some of the other websites, looking for nice little gadgets that I can add to my collection.
So when you're doing your solo stuff, are you are you playing guitar and like other instruments?
Yeah, I'm playing guitar. When I do these songs for Patreon, I'm doing everything. So I do I program the drums. I do keyboards, which I can only play with the computer. So I can slowly, I can map out the chords and let the computer fix it for me because I'm not really a keyboard player. But I do guitar and I do bass and all the vocals and I do a rough mix because I'm still, the mixing and mastering thing is a whole nother like can of worms to deal with, really. So you kind of get through the basics. Yeah, it's tough to get it to sound, really, really good. But I do the best I can. It's fun. Everybody knows it's a work in progress. I also have spent the time, I'm working on some new material of my own as well. So I've just been taking that time to write and everything, and just been doing a few little things here, a few little sessions here with some artists in Paris, and it's been fun.
Awesome.
Starting to get a little more busy.
Yeah. So we had a question in a comment here. What is the preamp that you're using?
Well, I use the RME Fireface as my, I guess that's what you call, like, what? No, preamp. See, now I'm going to get muddled with my details.
Yeah.
I have the Lunchbox API 512C, I believe it is. Without C, I don't remember the numbers. Those are the mic pre's that I use, which are really nice. And my actual interface, my audio, I guess that's what you call that, the thing that you plug the mics into and everything that goes into the computer, is an RME Fireface 800. It's an old one. I think I'm going to be going to the Universal Audio soon, like just downside, because the Fireface is a rack unit. It's big. It's got input, and I've had it for a very long time.
Yeah.
And it's great. It's just a little complicated, but it sounds really good. It's a little complicated to use it, but that's the mic.
The Universal Audio stuff is awesome.
Yes, that's why I was I did a track with Tony Levin, bass player. Speaking of another bass player who plays Stingrays, Tony is my neighbor in Kingston, and we're in New York, and he and his brother did like this cover last summer of a Peter Gabriel song. Just Tony and his brother Pete, who did keyboards and kind of synth stuff, and then I did the vocal for them. And Tony sent this track to me, and his bass sounded so amazing. I was like, well, I mean, he is Tony Levin after all, so I'm not surprised. But I wrote to him and I said, Tony, what do you use on your bass? Like how does that? You know, he was playing fretless on this particular song, and he sent me an email back and he said, it's Universal Audio. It's the preamp or whatever setting they have in the Universal Audio, probably just the Apollo Twin or the Quad, or like, I don't think he had he said he didn't have a huge setup, but it was one of the plugins that from Universal Audio, and boy, did his bass sound tremendous. So I'm definitely kind of leaning towards checking that out, and maybe having to.
Yeah, well, let us know. We'll hook you up.
Okay, yeah. I was looking the other day at one of just the Apollo Twin, something I can travel with, which would be great because
totally.
Really...
That's another thing too. They're so small, you can throw it in a bag, and you got a couple cables or whatever you need to connect it to your laptop, and you're good to go.
Absolutely.
So what's the future kind of look like for you, Gail? Because things are kind of starting to open up a little bit. I'm seeing tours getting announced.
Yeah, well, I don't have any tours I'm scheduled to do it at the moment, but the future for me is like by the end of the year, I want to release some new music. So I'm more still in kind of recording zone at the moment and writing zone. And by the end of the year, I want to put out maybe not an album, but at least 2 or 3 songs. So that's my goal over the next few months, is to kind of wrangle that together. I had some tracks that I had started in the studio, like with drums. I have Jerry Murata playing drums and some really cool people, and David Spinoza, a great guitar player, playing on some stuff. And I want to kind of just finish that stuff up and get it out. So,
yeah. I'm kind of in the same boat. I have some things started, and I just want to finish them and get them out there for the world to see, and then maybe worry about playing live shows in 2022. And
that's what I'm feeling. I'm feeling 2022 is going to be. Actually, I have a live show next weekend. Funny enough, it'll be the first one I've done in over a year. I'm singing with Donnie McCaslin, who was the saxophone player on the Black Star album, the Bowie Black Star album.
Yeah.
Donnie, I've done some work with him as a vocalist. I'm not playing bass, singing with Donnie on a few of his own projects, and we actually were both invited to perform at the Torino Jazz Festival in Turin, in Italy. It was supposed to be last May, so they've rescheduled, and it's actually happening next weekend.
Oh, there you go.
So I'm going to go, and I'm just going to do 4 songs in the set. We're doing 2 Bowie songs and 1 of Donnie's songs and 1 of my songs, 1 of my new songs. Perfect. That I'm going to play with his band. So that's my first, like, I'm nervous. I'm like, oh my God.
I was going to say, you got to
be okay.
You got to shake it all off, and it's like, oh, I'm
yeah, exactly. So I have 1 little live show coming up next weekend, and then I probably, like you said, I think 2022 is going to be more like a touring year at some point.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of especially the tours that I'm seeing announced, and like some of the festivals are like they're just postponed shows from when they were supposed to happen last year. So it's like I get it. You still want to do your show, and the fans want it too.
Sure. Oh yeah, I'm sure.
I think but I think as far as planning goes, everyone's kind of trying to get back into it, and figure out what the not only the smartest move for career or what you're doing musically, but for your safety and health and things like that.
Absolutely. And just like I feel like just navigating like the new, all of this, even what we're doing, has been a new kind of introduction to music, and all of the Zooms from home and the things from it's like that maybe that's not going to disappear, so like, how does that work, and how are artists going to make that a part of their career, and the streaming thing, like there's so many like kind of new things I feel that are happening very quickly, and it's like kind of navigating the waters of the music industry is got to really kind of have your wits about you right now and kind of figure
Yeah.
out how to stay afloat.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's pretty
It's,
crazy.
I mean, how many artists had, Patreons and doing what you're doing before COVID? I'm sure there was a
Yeah,
handful, but, I
yeah,
think it really kind of ramped up a little bit. Is that
exactly.
something you plan on kind of continuing,
I'm gonna
until it
try.
just doesn't feel right, I guess?
Well, it's actually difficult because I started to get a little bit of work going on here, and then I got, it takes a fair amount of time,
Yeah.
especially because I'm not very fast and I'm pretty meticulous about I don't really just want to throw out crap. I kind of
Totally.
want to do something nice and I want to make a nice presentation and I have all these ideas, but they take time. And then so I'm like, oh my God, I'm behind this month. I haven't delivered the song or I haven't, but I have so far I have such great subscribers that I've had a great time at the chats, and it's just been really, really fun, getting to know people and talk about music and art and all kinds of things we talk about. So it's really fun, and people get to ask me questions and whatever. But I plan to go as long as I can keep keep the level of you know things that I'm offering at a good level. Otherwise, it's really I don't want to do it if it has to be half. So
Totally.
I'll see. I know that once I get start touring again, or whether it's with my own touring or someone else, it's not going to be possible for me to keep that going.
Yeah,
But
it's
I,
gonna be tough.
but I think I'm probably going to still have I still have a few good months left.
Yeah. Well,
I'm
maybe
sure.
you can kind of do something where, if you're touring, people can come see you live and like talk to
Well,
you
that's
there.
part.
Do
That
something like
is
that.
part of it. Yeah, that
Yeah.
is part of it. That the higher level subscribers. If you see that I'm coming to your town,
Hmm.
I offer two
Like a
pairs
meet
of
and greet.
tickets
Yeah.
and a meet and greet,
That's
either
awesome.
before or after the show, whatever is easiest. So
Yeah. Well, hopefully I see you come through Chicago sometime in the next couple of
yeah,
years and,
I hope so.
get to see you play.
I love
That'd be awesome.
Chicago.
Yeah. So,
Yeah,
Gail, I really appreciate your time and, talking about your career, talking about your
pleasure.
gear, and what you've been up
Yeah,
to. It's
yeah.
been such a pleasure and just really appreciate it. All right. Well, everybody, thank you for joining us. Really appreciate you guys coming in and asking some questions. And yeah, feel free to head to zZounds. We have a link to all the Ernie Ball Music Man basses as a featured link. So feel free to go check those out and have a great rest of your day. Thank you so much.